back to my channel. Today we're going to dive into the 3 eyeshadow palettes that just launched from Huda Beauty. So these are her 9-pan palettes. This is called the Toffee Brown palette. And we have the Caramel Brown palette, which is actually what I'm wearing right now is the Caramel Brown. And then we have the Chocolate Brown. Now this is kind of like a tortoise collection. So there was like a makeup, I think there was like 2 different makeup bags launched with it. I think you could get a mini liquid lip set. I didn't pick up anything from the collection other than the 3 palettes. I was excited about the tortoise collection because I actually have a tortoise. His name is Breckenridge. I call him Little Man. He is the sweetest little soul. And so I just loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is based on tortoise. Like, I gotta get it, right? Each one of these palettes retail for $29. In the video, I'm going to play with each palette. I'm gonna create a look using each one of the palettes. And then after we get through the tutorials, I will go through and do a ton of swatches. So because these are not like super unique as far as the color story, I will give as many swatches and comparisons as I can. And then of course, we will jump into my final thoughts. I have a lot to say about these palettes, good and bad. There were some duds in each one of these palettes. Some of the shimmer shades I just really struggled with. So in my final thoughts, I will get into which palette I liked the most, which one I felt like didn't have as many duds as the others. But yeah, there were definitely some duds. So we're going to get into that in my final thoughts. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight into the tutorials, and I will see you guys all in my final thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump into the Chocolate Brown palette. And this is really pretty. I'm very excited to play with this. So I want this to be a little bit dark. I kind of want to play with some of these like darker purples, and I don't know, I just want to play. I'm going to try this shade first and put it in the crease. It might be a little bit too light. It might be more for my skin tone, more of like a blending shade, not necessarily like a crease shade. So we'll try it, see what color we get. And then if I need a darker shade in the crease, I'll grab this shade right here. Actually, that shade is showing up in my crease. And I don't have any concealer on yet because I figured that I would wait until I was completely like done with the upper so that I could kind of clean up, because I do need to film another video today and I don't want like a ton of fallout. Okay, so now just to deepen it up just a little bit, I'm going to grab this shade on the top. Really pretty color, and these together are really beautiful. Now I'm going to grab this dark shade right here. So I've tapped off and I'm going to slowly build this because, you know, I don't want it to be like super, super dark. I'm just keeping it right here on the lid. Yeah, not bringing it much into the crease. Then I'm going to grab a smaller brush because I'm going to kind of go down into my inner corner. Okay, I will say right off the bat, the one thing that I'm liking about this purple is that it's extremely buildable, but it's not so much pigment. So like sometimes when you're working with like a really dark purple, sometimes you just get so much pigment that it kind of like overtakes the look and you feel like you're just going to lose control of it. I don't feel that way at all with this purple. This purple is very, very easy to use. For me, being somebody that's, you know, doesn't like it super, super dark or have to like blend the crap out of something, I really like this formula. It's very, very easy to blend. Now I don't know what color to put on the lid. Like there's several that I could put on the lid. I think I'm gonna grab this shade right here and then maybe put this on the top, kind of like on the center to kind of make it pop. I am gonna take my Smith 253 brush and I'm gonna pick up this shade right here. Let's put it on first without spraying it. This might be best applied with a finger because that brush just was not kind of picking it up. Let me grab a different brush. Maybe that brush is just not meant to work with it. So I'm going to grab the reference number 28. This is a new brush. It's dirty, but I've wiped it off on a towel. So I'm going to pick up that shade and I'm going to place it like right. Okay, so maybe this shade needs to be applied wet because like it's going on, don't get me wrong, but it is something that I kind of have to work with. So now I'm going to grab this shade here on the bottom. I'm going to place it right here on the center. Wait. What is the deal with these? These are not, okay, hold on. Just had higher hopes for that shade. I'm not going to lie. Like those two shades, the shimmer shades that I just used, I just had a little bit different expectations. Let's try wetting it down. So I'm going to pick that shade up with a small brush and then I'm going to spray it with some Matte Fix Plus. Let's see if that kind of helps give it some extra. Okay, so that helped. So I threw on some concealer. I'm going to kind of blend this line out with just a brush that doesn't really have much product on it. I just don't want it to be so sharp. Let's move on to the lower lash line, and I'm just going to go directly into this shade right here. Now I am going to grab a flat tip brush, and I'm going to grab the purple. And I'm going to softly like blend this into the lower lash line. And as I'm doing it, I'm kind of like dragging the brush down. So I'm going back and forth and then kind of pulling it down at the same time. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the upper. Just to make sure I have some of that depth. Ooh. That depth just took this upper to another level, right? Okay, so I'm back. This is the final look, and it turned out really beautiful. I have not put anything on the inner corner, and I'm kind of feeling like I don't really want to. What I did do was I took this Makeup by Mario eyeliner pencil. It is from his Master Mattes. This is the Brightening Pencil Light number 1, and I put it on my waterline just to kind of brighten it up. When I'm wearing a dark eyeshadow look and a full lash, I like to go in with something like this to kind of brighten up the eye. As far as the lippy goes, I am wearing the Lisa Eldridge Velvet formula in the shade Affair. It's really beautiful, and I felt like this was like a perfect eyeshadow look to wear this shade with. As far as the lashes go, they are the House of Lashes in the style Iconic Lights. So that's it for the look using the Caramel Brown palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the next palette. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the Caramel Brown palette. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of play around with these shades. I'm hoping that the shimmers in this palette are a little bit better than the chocolate, but we'll see. I'm going to grab this shade right here. I'm going to focus it right out here on the outer corner first, just to kind of give a little bit of dimension out here. Okay, so that shade builds up really nicely. Also going to bring that on the lower lash line. Next, I'm going to go in with the darker shade, this one right here on the outer corner, and just deepen that up a little bit. So far, I'm getting really good pigment from the mattes. I had the same experience with the chocolate brown. It really like melts into the skin, and it has kind of a shine to it, which I really like. I think it's really pretty. This shade right here looks really beautiful in the pan, but it's kind of weak. And so like marbly and kind of unique in the pan, but like when you swatch it, it looks terrible. Because I'm having issues with this shade, I want to apply this on the lid. I'll probably like bring it on the inner corner because I want you guys to see what it looks like applied, because it's just not swatching very good. So I'm going to take the reference number 28 brush and I'm going to pick it up dry. Put it right here on the inner corner. Like there's hardly any pigment with a brush, like hardly anything comes off, like nothing. You can see there's nothing there. Like, it's so weird. There's nothing to this shadow. Like, I don't know if it's supposed to be just like a topper shade or what the hell that is, but it has the weakest pigment. Let's go ahead and load it up on the brush, and I'm gonna spray it with some MAC Fix Plus. See if that will help to bring it some life. Okay, so that's better, but that is a total dud in my opinion. Let's grab this shade right here. It's a little bit chunkier than that first shade on the top, so I'm assuming I'm gonna get better pigment from this. Now I'm gonna go into this shade right here. I'm trying to like apply them all so I can kind of see which ones are duds and which ones work. This shade right here is, it's pretty, but applied with a brush, you just don't, like, you have to really work it. You really have to work it and build it. This is probably best applied with a finger because it swatches pretty good. It swatches okay, but with a brush, because this is such a thin formula, it's like the brush has a hard time like grabbing the shadow. Next, I am going to grab the dark shade right here. I'm gonna bring that out here on the outer corner. I'm gonna grab this shade with my blending brush, and I'm gonna go over top of it just to kind of like smoke it all out and kind of define it a little bit. Yeah, I got a lot of fallout, you guys, like way more than I thought. So I would recommend doing your eye makeup first before using this palette because it is a hot mess. Okay, now I've got my concealer on. I'm gonna go back and add more color of this on the lower lash line. I am going to pick up a little bit of this with a smaller pencil brush and go right over top of it. Ooh, yeah, these shades are pigmented. And just take a flat definer brush, and I'm gonna grab this shade right here. I'm gonna smoke that into the lower lash line. I'm also gonna bring that shade on the upper lash line, but I did spray it with some MAC Fix Plus, and I'm just gonna deepen up this outer corner. Okay, so I'm back. This is the final look, and I did go ahead and put on a brown eyeliner on the upper waterline, and then of course just use like a brown eyeliner to kind of hide the lash band. I'm wearing the House of Lashes in the style Iconic Lights for the lashes. And then for the lippy, I grabbed the Huda Beauty Liquid Matte, and this is in the shade Trendsetter. I don't know if this is still available. I didn't apply a lip liner or anything. This is the Jaclyn Cosmetics in the shade Bomb, and it's too much for a highlighter, but what I like to use this for is an inner corner highlight, and then I like to take a little bit of it right here on the center to really make it pop. So that's what I did. I just took this. It's a really pretty like pop and gold, like a really pretty gold. So I popped it on the inner corner, and then I took a tiny little brush and popped it right here on the center just to add a little bit more definition. Let's go ahead and jump into the Toffee Brown palette, which will be the final look. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into the final tutorial. This is the Toffee Brown palette. So I'm gonna start with the mustard yellow. I think it's a very pretty color, and this is kind of what draws me into this palette. So I'm gonna grab a small blending brush and pick that shade up and just bring that in the crease, but kind of above the crease so that that shade is very visible on the crease. I want that to kind of be the shade that pops through the look. Now I'm going to grab this shade right up here and focus that right inside the crease. So So those colors blended together kind of turns into a darker mustard, which is really pretty. I am going to first grab this shade and put it here on the outer corner, right out here on the outer corner. And then I'm going to grab this shade and put it over top. Grab this shade right here and I'm going to put that on the lid. I'm going to place it like right here. Now this is with a dry brush. So this shade might be better applied with a finger. That's been my experience with all of these palettes. Like they need a finger or like a sponge tip applicator. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna switch to a small pencil brush and I'm gonna grab these two shades, kind of mixing them together. And I am going to buff out this line right there. Now let's see what this shade looks like. So I'm gonna pick this shade up and let's bring that on the inner corner. And I'm also going to kind of tip my head back and bring that shade up and into the crease just to kind of open things up, you know? Okay, those two shades together are really beautiful. And like, this is really pretty. I like this. So far, I really like this. Now, I want to see what this shade does. Let's just grab it and press it on the center and see if it makes any kind of a... It's a very sheer topper shade. So it's really pretty, but it's not very pigmented. So it doesn't have a lot of intensity. Okay, so I went ahead and threw on some concealer. Let's go ahead and go to the lower lash line. I'm going to grab the yellow. I'm going to sweep that right underneath the lower lash line and kind of bringing it out a little bit so that it kind of peeks out. All three of these palettes give me fall vibes though. I will be honest, they do not feel summery or springy or anything to me. I'm kind of trying to get past that, but I'm gonna grab this shade right up here on the top. So I'm gonna bring this closer to the lash line. I'm going to grab my Sigma E15 and I'm gonna grab this shade right here. I am going to smoke that into the lower lash line, but keeping it right on the lash. So I'm going to use this dark shade as like a liner. So I am actually going to spray my brush with some MAC Fix. I'm going to bring it a little bit here on the outer corner on the lower, and then right up here on the upper. I want to see if I can get this shade to pop up in the inner corner, and then I'm going to spray it and see if I can get some impact from it. So I've got it here on a tiny pencil brush. I'm gonna keep trying to pack it on and see if I can get... If you really pack it, it will work. You just have to really pack it on. But it's really beautiful when you pack it on. I mean, look how beautiful that is. So I just finished the rest of my makeup. I threw on a pair of lashes. I'm actually wearing the Ardell Naked lashes in the style 421. I really like these naked lashes from Ardell. They have a couple of different ones, a couple of different styles in the naked, and I love them. They're just really natural and lightweight. You can't really feel them on the eye. Very easy to apply, very beautiful. So as far as the lippy goes, I grabbed my KKW Beauty Nude 2.5 lip liner. I used a eyeshadow brush, kind of blended it into the lip, which is one of my favorite things to do. Then I grabbed the Jouer High Pigment Pearl Lip Gloss in the shade Maui. Shiny lip to match the shiny eye. So that's it for the look using the Toffee Brown palette. Let's go ahead and jump into the swatches and comparisons. I will kind of go through and try to find as many comparisons as I can. And then, of course, we will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. and jump into my final thoughts. I have to admit that this is probably my favorite of the 3 palettes, just because the shimmers are a little bit easier to use in this palette. This one is the Toffee, and it's a little bit different than what I have in my collection as far as the color story goes. I think especially because of that mustard color. I would have to say my second favorite is probably the chocolate. I loved the matte shades in this palette, and I felt like they blended really easily, and when I created that halo eye with it, it was very easy to create. The only bad thing about this palette is the shimmer shades are not good. In all 3 of the palettes, the shimmer shades are pretty weak. And it's sad because there's a lot of different textures in these palettes, and they're so like aesthetically beautiful to look at, but they're hard to use. They're very hard to use. You don't get a lot of pigment from them, and you really have to work hard and pack. Like, I would recommend, if you were gonna pick up these 3 palettes, or maybe you've already bought them, and if you're struggling with these palettes, I recommend using a felt tip applicator. I didn't use those in the tutorial because I wanted to show you guys what it looks like with a brush, because a lot of people don't use felt tip applicators. And I've had people tell me, well, I really wish you wouldn't use a felt tip applicator because I don't have one and I'd rather see it with a brush. So I get it, but on the flip side of that, these are not that pigmented. And if you're wanting more pigment from them, then a felt tip applicator will do you wonders. It just really will. I would say this is my least favorite, only just because I struggled with this palette. So to boil it all down, these are kind of a disappointment because we have a lot of Huda Beauty palettes, right? And in my experience, I have found that there's a big hit and miss when it comes to Huda Beauty's Obsession palettes. Like one palette I will absolutely love, and all of the shades are amazing, and the mattes blend beautifully, and everything's good. And then you'll go to a different palette, maybe in the same collection that, you know, were released together, and you have a completely different experience. These palettes are no different. They're very up and down in consistency, and all 3 of the palettes, you have to kind of make the shimmer shadows work. They're kind of messy, so all 3 of the eyeshadow looks, I had to kind of wipe underneath and, you know, clean up a mess. But in all 3 of the palettes, what was consistent was the mattes. The mattes blend beautifully. I had 0 issues with the mattes, like absolutely none. They all blend beautifully. And what I also like about the mattes in these palettes is that they are those type of mattes that give the eyelid a little bit of a shine. But if you're somebody that likes a lot of pigment and you are a shimmer person, you just love shimmers, shimmers are your thing, just know that you're going to have to really work to get the shimmers to show up. You can make them work, obviously, because I think that all 3 of the looks I created were really beautiful at the end of the day. They just take a little bit more work than some of the other Huda Beauty palettes that are out on the market. And I really feel like she missed an opportunity. Like, I think she's trying to make these aesthetically beautiful, but the formula just doesn't match with how beautiful it is. So this shade right here, this is in the caramel brown. This shade is a complete dud. There is no pigment in this shade. None whatsoever. I mean, none. It's like, what? Where'd it go? It is so light that it doesn't even show up on the eye, okay? Unless you have really, really like fair, light skin, then that shade will show up. Now, in this palette, this one is the Toffee. This one has a shimmer that's kind of swirly like that. But because the base of this one is more of like a vanilla shade color, it has some color, but not a lot. Weak. Like, pointless, in my opinion. Pointless. She has more of your traditional metallic formulas where, you know, they blend and apply really beautifully. All 3 of the palettes have a metallic shade. So like, for example, in the Toffee Brown, this one is a metallic and it blends and applies really beautifully. This one right here, which is the chocolate brown, this one is a beautiful metallic, and the one right next to it is a beautiful metallic. So these apply beautifully and swatch beautifully, right? So they apply like a traditional metallic, but it's this formula right here. So this is the caramel brown. It's this formula right here and here. These are like these really chunky, like shimmer shades that are kind of messy and kind of hard to work with. They make kind of a mess as you're applying them. And like this one right here, has a lot of pigment, but this one right here is weak. So there's inconsistencies with even how they blend and how they apply. It's the weirdest thing. I don't understand it. In the chocolate brown palette, it's these two shades right here. The formula I'm just not here for on these. I wouldn't say that this is her best formula. It's not the same formula as what's in her bigger palettes. I would say, seems like her bigger palettes have the best formulas. The other thing I want to mention is that these for me just don't feel spring and summer to me. They feel very fall for me, and it's like something that I won't be reaching for because I'm kind of pulling away from those like darker kind of colors, and I want something a little bit more light, you know, like it just kind of changes with the seasons. She markets to a worldwide audience, so everybody's seasons are different. So even though these feel fall vibes for me, that doesn't mean it's going to be fall vibes for somebody, you know, in like Australia or New Zealand or whatever. Like you guys just got done with summer, so you're wanting to move towards fall. So I get it. Those are my overall thoughts. Sound off down below in the comment section. Let us know how you guys are feeling about these new Obsession palettes. Did you guys get them? If you did get them, which palette did you get, and what is your experience? Because like I've always said, this is just my experience, one person. Your guys' comments and experience is just as important than anyone else's that's coming on behind a camera and discussing it. So share with us in the comment section down below your experiences with these palettes. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you. Bye.